Welcome to the Midwest Compliance Updates for June and July. In Illinois craft grow operations frozen from operations as 12 craft growers obtain temporary restraining order. Less than a week after Illinois regulations awarded 48 new craft grow licenses, licensees are barred from continuing operations as the result of a temporary restraining order imposed by the Wimbargo County judge for 1 week after 12 craft growers alleged the process was rigged against them. The plaintiffs include Sustainable Innovations, Prairie Fire Craft, Nexim Social Equity Partners, Cadeo, This Too, Lush Life Organics, Green Street Buds, The Refinery, Illinois Craft, Fresh Herb Craft Grow, Always Growing Industries, For Buds, and Americana Genetics. The lawsuit alleges that the IDOA altered the scoring process for craft grower applicants by allowing them to hold licenses without building their facilities and retaining their employees that would give them the social equity status. The suit claims that these actions harm the integrity of the program overall, stating that 19 licenses have no operational facility 10 months after receiving a license, despite being required to surrender the license if no facility is operational within 6 months. As of today, the state has issued 88 craft grow licenses, 54 infuser licenses, and 189 transporter licenses. The craft grow licenses are each limited to 5,000 square feet of canopy for adult use cannabis cultivation. Furthermore, Murray and his attorney Eric Carson claimed that the veterans inadvertently became a favored class that was given an unfair advantage in the applicant process, scoring more points in their applications than those without a veteran on staff. Interesting stuff out of Illinois. If you're interested to learn more about Illinois and everything that's going down there, go check out the Elevated Businesses podcast. I interview KJ, who is a veteran, social equity status, and also an operator that is attempting to receive a license in Illinois and is also currently an operator in Michigan. All right, more in Illinois and also from Gronin again. So Illinois craft grow applicants bewildered after missing out with perfect scores. As Illinois begins to dole down its new craft grow licenses and share final application scores, applicants with near perfect scores but no license are confused and seeking answers. James Van Hofwegen, a real estate agent who first applied for a license 2 years ago, is planning to file an administrative review complaint against the Illinois Department of Agriculture because he missed out on a license despite receiving 982 points on his craft grow license application, the max number of points possible without being a veteran-led applicant. Van Hofwegen claims that the scoring system puts social equity applicants' teams without military veterans at a disadvantage. His complaint is one of many regarding that so-called veteran points. Monday, a temporary restraining order, or a TRO, was issued by a Wimbargo County judge after 12 craft grow applicants filed a complaint on the overrepresentation of veterans. In the most recent round of craft grow license winners, all 48 won licenses as qualified social equity applicants, but also all of the license winners were veteran-led teams. Van Hofwegen's team plans to submit his case to court for administrative review before July 6th, the 35-day deadline after licenses were announced on June 1st. A hearing for permanent injunction on the TRO is set for June 15th. All right, so let's look at just one more article about everything happening in Illinois. So craft grow applicants file for administrative review, adding to pile of Illinois litigation. As Illinois crosses the deadline to file suit for administrative review for craft grow licenses awarded on Thursday, July 7th, Gronin took a look at one suit filed against the Illinois Department of Agriculture by 6 applicants, who charged that the state's scoring system for licenses unfairly weighed license awards so that the only winning applicants are military veterans. All Illinois craft grow licenses have been awarded to veteran-led teams according to state regulators. Earlier this year, similar lawsuits were filed by dispensary license applicants against Illinois regulators. Those suits are still winding through court and are not likely to be resolved until 2023. The lawsuit filed in Cooks County Circuit Court by Abbey v. LLC, Chicago Greens, Herbal Remedies Illinois 1, the FMA Illinois 1, Diamond Star Underground, Pure Comet, and NWA Holdings against IDOA Director Jerry Costello. Charges the craft grow applicant scoring process made it impossible for other applicants who aren't veterans to be granted licenses. Qualified social equity applicants are defined as Illinois residents who have been living in areas disproportionately affected by the war on drugs, as well as those arrested for or convicted of cannabis-related offenses. The suit claims that the IDOA granted veterans an unfair advantage in violation of state law, referencing the, quote, special legislation clause, end quote, of the Illinois Constitution that prohibits special laws to allow a certain class to hold a power or an exclusive privilege over others. Interesting things transpiring in Illinois, as always. All right, and our last one out of Illinois. Illinois cannabis prices remain high, amongst the highest in the nation. Illinois cannabis has become notorious for its high prices since adult use was legalized in 2020. When recreational sales first went online in January 2020, the Chicago Sun-Times reported an eighth in Illinois at retail could cost as much as $62, making it the most expensive in the nation at the time. While the highest price crown has now been passed to Washington, D.C., prices in Illinois still remain the highest among adult use states, with Illinois' prices for an ounce costing as much as $354. Behind only Virginia and Maryland among adult use states. State Rep. LaShawn Ford, a leader on state cannabis legislation, put blame on Illinois' numerous taxes, ranging from retail sales tax to a tax on potency. Yet while he acknowledges the price can be a burden to the consumer, he believes that the revenue provides an overall net positive to state residents. While Ford does not advocate capping prices, he does believe legislators can still alleviate the burden by reducing tax burdens on consumers. In a similar way, the state has done responding to high gas prices. 1/3 of Illinois craft grow licenses went to politicians and existing cannabis companies. Cole Preston, host of Chillinois podcast, believes more growers and licenses may help bring down the cost burden on consumers. Currently, Illinois has the lowest number of cannabis business licenses per capita of any legal state. Both Ford and Preston acknowledge the prices could encourage consumers to purchase elsewhere, which could hinder growth and revenue for the state's legal industry. Very true. In Michigan, Detroit medical dispensary owners sue city over ballot initiative. A group of Detroit medical dispensary owners failed to get a ballot initiative in place to repeal the city's adult use ordinance. They are now suing the city over it. The citizens of Better Social Equity have filed suit in Wayne County Circuit Court against Detroit City Clerk Janice Winfrey in order to get their initiative on the ballot for November 8, 2022 midterm elections. The group, backed by a group of dispensaries and created to eliminate the city's new adult use ordinance that went into effect in April, alleged the deadline was convoluted. The original dismissal of the petition filed by the Department of Elections ruled that the petitioners failed to meet the April 20th deadline when they attempted to file it on May 20th. However, the current suit claims the ordinance went into effect at a later time than the deadline was meant to go into effect. Attorney Jeff Schroeder, who represents Citizens for Better Social Equity, could not be reached for comment. The new ordinance written by the City Council was meant to address issues with both the first ordinance, struck down last year by a federal judge for sidelining certain residents, and to give Black Detroiters and those disproportionately affected by the war on drugs a chance to break into the industry. Michigan rolls out proposed new cannabis regulations. According to the filing, city law stipulates that anything passed by the city council with a 2/3 majority has an automatic 30-day window before an ordinance goes into, quote, immediately effect, end quote, in order to create petitions and ballot initiatives. Originally, the ballot was tossed out for missing the deadline entirely. Quote, there is no loophole in the charter that allows the council to use the powers of immediate effect charter provisions to shortcut the amount of time to obtain referendum signatures, the suit alleges. Defendant Janice Winfrey has filed to perform her duty to canvass the signatures and to follow the remain of Article 12 of the city charter in accordance with the city charter. the Home Rule City Act, and other applicable laws, end quote. The lawsuit coincides with 2 other filed in Detroit earlier this year, while medical operators are claiming the new ordinance would drive them out of business. Medical dispensaries are largely unable to become adult use facilities until 2027. Many believe the ordinances would drive them out of business. Medical sales have plummeted in recent months, with adult use sales taking up the bulk of cannabis revenue in Michigan. Standard. Cannabis Regulatory Agency Director Andrew Brisboe reported medical sales have fallen 48% from a year ago to 23.3 million per month in May, and adult use sales have increased by 56% to 163.2 million per month in May. So that's just standard with adult use and medical, which is really why you shouldn't have 2 supply chains and you should just have one, but then you have the over-regulations, all the red tape with adult use that you don't have on the medical side in the caregiver market. So it's really tough. You really can't win. All right, and now some articles still out of Michigan, but by the CRA. Cannabis Regulatory Agency announces 2022 Veteran Marijuana Research Grant recipients. The Cannabis Regulatory Agency, the CRA, announced on July 1st, 2022, the 2022 Veteran Marijuana Research VMR grant program awarded recommendations to Wayne State University and the University of Michigan. All of the information regarding the VMRA grant program, including the initial request for proposals, RFP, the response to inquiries, the JEC summary and award recommendations, and each of the 2022 received proposals, it is published on the CRA website. On April 1st, 2022, the CRA issued an RFP for the VMR grants. The Michigan Regulatory and Taxation of Marijuana Act, initiated Law 1 of 2018, was passed by the voters of the state of Michigan in November 2018, and among other things creates the Marijuana Regulation Fund in the state treasury and requires the CRA to expand money in the fund until 2022 or for at least 2 years, to provide $20 million annually to 1 or more clinical trials that are approved by the United States Food and Drug Administration and sponsored by a nonprofit organization or researcher within an academic institution researching the efficacy of cannabis in treating the medical conditions of United States Armed Forces veterans and preventing veteran suicide. The CRA received responsive proposals in response to the RFP from Wayne State University, the University of Michigan, Field to Healed, and Omni Medical Services. The review team recommended that the Wayne State University receives 2 grant awards and the University of Michigan receives 1 grant award. When determining the amount awarded to each organization, the review team took into consideration factors including experience and financial stability of the organization, work plan, management summary, budget, and budget narrative. Wayne State University was awarded the full amount requested for both of their proposals, which is $9 million and about $3.5 million, and the University of Michigan was awarded $7.4 million of the requested $11.9 million. Responses to this solicitation were reviewed by a joint evaluation committee, JEC, which consisted of the following individuals listed here: Andrew, Robert, and Catherine. All right, another one out of Michigan. Just some disciplinary action report. Something's happening. Kalamazoo and Ann Arbor exclusive brands, Bangor Green Mitten Agriculture Corporation for metric noncompliance. A couple different things happening. So noncompliant transfers between cannabis businesses, sampling and testing. Let's take a look at more of the information. So non-compliant sales, sales of product on administrative hold, overselling the purchase limits, not very medical cannabis registration card status or ID, improper home delivery, not following home delivery procedures, metric, incorrect inventory, product not identified in metric, product without metric tags, missing or incorrect info in metric, inaccurate employee data in metric. Also packaging and labeling, surveillance and security. God, they went through the gamut. Failure to report material changes, work in progresses, test results, which is kind of a big deal in Michigan. Waste disposal. Holy cow. Looks like they need the RMCC certification program. All right, moving on. All right, another one from CRA. Some guidance on tinctures. So the CRA says that tinctures are not defined in either the Medical Marijuana Facilities Licensing Act, MIFLA, or the Michigan Regulatory and Taxation of Marijuana Act, MRTMA. When a term is not specifically defined in statute, the Cannabis Regulatory Agency, CRA, uses the plain meaning of the term as defined in the dictionary. As a result, CRA policy has been that a product labeled as being a tincture must contain alcohol. The CRA recently reviewed products produced and sold by several licenses that are labeled and sold as tinctures. The products appeared to be non-compliant because they were labeled as a tincture but contain no alcohol and exceeds the allowable THC limit of 100 milligrams per container in the adult use market, per the THC limits contained in the bulletin. The CRA has been notifying licenses that the sale of these products is a violation. In response, many licenses are expressed concern about the lack of clarifying statutory definition, common industry practice in other states, and residual solvents compliance testing for tinctures. To address these concerns until a long-term solution can be implemented, the CRA will allow licenses to make the necessary changes to packaging, labeling, formulations, and recipes, and take no disciplinary action against the licenses regarding the product that is currently available for sale or transfer for 60 days from the date of this bulletin, which was July 30th, 2022, which will be August 30th, 2022. And then, of course, if you got questions or anything else, contact CRA via these links and email. All right, in Minnesota legalizes THC and may open new market for Oregon hemp producers. Minnesota lawmakers recently passed legislation allowing THC-infused food and beverages items containing up to 5 milligrams per serving and 50 milligrams per package. The twist, however, is the legislation did not outright legalize marijuana, i.e. cannabis plant with a THC concentration of greater than 0.3%. Instead, THC products in Minnesota must be derived from hemp plants and cannot exceed a total concentration of 0.3% Delta-9 THC. The new regulatory framework adopted by Minnesota is a bit confusing, you wouldn't say. And several Republican legislators who voted in favor of the bill themselves admitted they did not know what they were voting to legalize Delta-9 THC. This blog post will clarify what is now allowed in Minnesota and how the state's developing marketplace may become an attractive selling point for Oregon hemp businesses. The new legislation coming out of Minnesota legalizes cannabinoids so long as they are extracted from certified hemp, meaning that both Delta-8 and traditional 9-THC are legal for sale in Minnesota if they are derived from a hemp plant and the products contain less than 0.3% THC by dry weight. While this means edibles in Minnesota cannot be as strong as edibles in other states, which usually can include 10 milligrams of Delta-9 THC per serving and 100 milligrams per package, processors can conceivably grow or purchase large amounts of hemp or hemp biomass and extract THC to create edibles containing up to 50 milligrams of THC per package. An important note regarding that the 0.3 THC concentration rule is the legislation makes no distinction between Delta-8 and Delta-9 THC. The 0.3% limit focuses on total THC concentration, meaning products containing both Delta-8 and Delta-9 or any other mix of cannabinoids cannot add to a concentration of greater than 0.3% THC. Regulation of cannabinoids in Minnesota falls under the purview of the Board of Pharmacy. The Minnesota Board of Pharmacy has recently, in a recent article, explained that they currently do not plan to adopt license requirements for retail sale, for foreseeably allowing the sale of cannabinoid products at any type of sale. Producers are required to test their products and keep records of test results available for inspection by the Board of Pharmacy. Oh, this is so interesting. The legalization coming out of Minnesota also establishes labeling and packaging requirements in addition to advertising restrictions that ensure products are not marketed to minors. The legislative changes comes from the land of 10,000 lakes are novel and may create a new marketplace that attract businesses across the nation. Because the legislation only legalizes products derived from hemp, which is federally legal following the 2018 Farm Bill, producers from out of state can engage in interstate trade with Minnesota's based companies. Given Minnesota's climate, it's likely economical for processors and retailers in the state to purchase plant material and finished products from places like Oregon that are better positioned to produce hemp. Minnesota's current marijuana legalization structure may prove especially attractive given the Oregon's recent established rules regulating cannabinoids derived from hemp. The new artificially derived, which, quick note on that, go take a look at the Western update because we do break down what Oregon's doing with a bunch of isomers and the minor cannabinoids. It's really interesting because actually Wild, who is a very big brand, their CBN gummies are actually going to get outlawed into Oregon. So really interesting. Go take a look at the Western update. Anyway, where was I? Minnesota's current marijuana legalization structure may prove especially attractive to Oregon's recently established rules for regulating cannabinoids derived from hemp. The new artificially derived cannabinoid rules in Oregon essentially prohibit marijuana licenses from creating or processing artificially derived cannabinoids, including Delta-8, but leaves the door open for ODA hemp licenses to produce the products and sell them out of state so long as the products contain less than 0.3% THC. This allows Oregon hemp producers and processors to do two things. One, sell cannabinoid edible products containing less than 0.3 THC to Minnesota, so long as the THC is derived from hemp. And two, sell federally compliant hemp extract and hemp biomass to Minnesota processors to create THC products that comply with Minnesota law. Minnesota's recent legislation is the first step towards full legalization. Future reforms, however, may come slow as the Minnesota legislature is currently split between Democrat and Republicans in the state have long opposed cannabis legalization. Some, in the fact, already want to overturn the new legislation. In the meantime, Minnesota current marijuana laws may create a potential new market for Oregon and other out-of-state companies developing hemp-derived cannabinoid products. So interesting, and just, again, highlighting this mismatch in our regulations and how much of a mess it is. Okay, shifting gears on over to Ohio. So just a really quick bulletin from Board of Pharmacy, letting you know the patient and caregiver counts happening right now. So right now, about 500,000 recommendations for patients, about 250,000 registered patients, about 250,000 unique patients who purchase medical cannabis as reported in the OARS by licensed dispensaries, and about 30,000 caregivers. Alrighty, we got a update out from ProCanna. The MMCP appreciates the feedback received from licenses on Metric RFID tags. The MMCP worked with Metric to create an option for utilization of RFID tags or the current non-RFID barcode labels. This option will be available in Metric beginning June 13th, 2022. Licensees are not being required to use RFID tags. Licensees may continue to use the traditional barcode labels. At this time, you may choose to utilize RFID tags or barcode labels. You may choose to utilize RFID tags or barcode labels for different parts of your operation. However, licensees must continue to properly tag and track all plants and packages in Metric. If RFID tags and barcode labels are being used within the same room, it is the licensee's responsibility to ensure that all plants' packages are accurately tracked. Metric does not require additional hardware or software. However, additional hardware and software may be necessary to take full advantage of the RFID technology, such as the scanners themselves. Licensees are encouraged to discuss options with hardware and software vendors. Metric does not currently provide refunds. As a reminder, whether using RFID or barcode labels, it is the licensee's responsibility to ensure accuracy of the data input into Metric and comply with all tracking requirements of Ohio Revised Code, Ohio Administrative Code 3796. Licensees should educate themselves on their RFID technology before proceeding. All right, and another update out of Ohio. The Ohio Department of Commerce Medical Marijuana Control Program is conducting its 5-year rule review of Ohio Administrative Code 3769. The MMCP is providing an updated framework of proposed rules to improve medical cannabis product testing, as well as a framework of proposed rules for advertising, packaging, and labeling. The MMCP is seeking feedback from stakeholders on these proposed changes, and please take a look at the links in the documents for all of the different updated frameworks. They're also looking for test laboratories now have the ability to report test results and metric for the following common terpenes, which is so exciting. Yay, about time. Can we please get on board with terpenes and stop with this indica sativa nonsense? Alrighty, and my last update for you all. This is out of Wisconsin. So Lake Country Growers relies on old school farming practices. So based in Wisconsin, Lake Country Growers specializes in CBD. The company grows its own product, planting some 22,000 plants its first year. After the harvest, the company contracts to have its plants extracted. In turn, Lake Country uses the extract in its products, including gummies, tinctures, chocolates, topicals, and a bath soap. The most popular product line is the gummies, though its top-selling product is a CBD-infused relief stick. Lorenz says that the company takes a more holistic approach to the CBD businesses for families looking for a health solution. Since its inception, Lake Country Growers has had healthy, consistent growth, and Lorenz hopes to scale the business in years to come. Just throwing it in here. It's Wisconsin. You never really hear about Wisconsin these days. And that is the Midwest updates for June and July.